Ryan Gosling walked into that restaurant in 2017, perfectly dressed in his tailored Gucci ensemble, exuding the kind of effortless sophistication that made every head turn. But then something happened that shattered the illusion in seconds. He pulled out his phone, angled it high above his perfectly plated meal, and started taking selfies. That moment, it revealed exactly what we are discussing today. You can own the finest Ermenegildo Zegna suits, sport a Patek Philippe on your wrist, and have every thread meticulously chosen by the world's best stylists. But elegance, true elegance, is not something you can purchase at Tom Ford or learn from a YouTube tutorial. It lives in the spaces between your words, in the way you move through a room when nobody is watching, and in the small decisions that reveal who you really are. Today, we are exposing the 10 silent habits that instantly betray your lack of genuine refinement. These are the subtle behaviors that make even the most expensive wardrobe look cheap, and the unconscious patterns that separate the truly elegant from those merely playing dress-up. The first betrayal: digital desperation. Michael B. Jordan understood something that most men miss entirely. During his 2019 red carpet appearances, while photographers captured his silver-embroidered blazer and perfectly matched cowboy boots, he never once reached for his phone to document his own elegance. Why? Because true sophistication absorbs the moment rather than broadcasting it. The modern epidemic of digital validation has created a new category of behavioral poverty among men who should know better. These are the ones posting mirror selfies in their custom Tom Ford suits, photographing their Rolex against the steering wheel of their Bentley, documenting every expensive meal as if their refinement requires external verification. When you photograph your expensive dinner at that Michelin-starred restaurant, you are not capturing elegance. You are performing it. And performance, my friend, is the enemy of authenticity. The man who needs to prove his refined taste to strangers on Instagram has already lost the game before it started. The psychology behind this betrayal runs deeper than simple vanity. Research shows that when we document experiences instead of living them, we actually remember them less vividly and experience them less fully. Your brain shifts from participant to observer, from being present to being producer. The elegant man creates memories, not content. Brad Pitt learned this lesson the hard way during his early career. In interviews from the 1990s, he admits to being obsessed with documenting every glamorous moment. But watch him now at premieres and formal events. His phone remains hidden. He experiences the evening rather than curating it for social media consumption. Consider the disturbing trend of men taking selfies in elegant settings. You know the scene, that table at the expensive restaurant with the candlelight, soft jazz, and 2 waiters assigned to each guest. It loses all charm the moment someone whips out their phone, angles it high, and gives their duck-lipped best. Elegance absorbs the atmosphere. It does not disrupt it. Here is the truth that the digital generation refuses to acknowledge. The most exclusive experiences become less valuable the moment they are shared with the world. True luxury lies in private enjoyment, in moments that exist only in memory, in experiences that cannot be reduced to filtered photographs and captions. The elegant man understands that his worth is not determined by others' perception of his lifestyle, but by his own experience of it. He does not need strangers to validate his sophistication because he does not derive his identity from external approval. If you are spending more time capturing your sophisticated lifestyle than actually living it, you are not elegant, you are desperate for validation. The second betrayal: restless energy. There is a particular kind of chaos that destroys elegance faster than anything else. Watch any gathering of successful men and you will spot him immediately. The one checking his phone every 30 seconds, the one adjusting his tie, his cufflinks, his watch, the one whose hands never find peace. Body language experts have studied this phenomenon extensively. When men feel uncomfortable or insecure, they create unconscious barriers with their movements, displaying defensive postures that immediately communicate their internal state to everyone around them. The crossed arms, the avoided eye contact, the constant fidgeting with objects. These are not just nervous habits, they are silent confessions of inadequacy. Elegant energy is controlled energy. It moves with purpose, not anxiety. When Donald Glover accepts awards or gives interviews, notice his stillness. His hands rest comfortably. His posture remains constant. He does not fidget because he does not need the room to revolve around his nervous energy. True confidence manifests in open body language, where arms hang naturally at the sides or rest lightly on the hips, shoulders remain square and relaxed, and the vitals, stomach, chest, and neck remain uncovered rather than defensively protected. This is the difference between commanding presence and desperate performance. I witnessed this firsthand at a business dinner in Manhattan. One gentleman wore an impeccable navy Brioni suit, Swiss timepiece, Italian leather shoes worth more than most people's monthly salary. Yet, throughout the evening, he tapped his fingers, shifted in his chair, and constantly adjusted his jacket. His displacement activities, the watch checking, the clothing adjustments, the constant movement, were unconscious signals that he wanted to leave the situation. By the end of the night, nobody remembered his expensive taste. They remembered his restlessness. The most damaging part, when a man's body faces away during conversation, when he crosses his arms in closed-off positions, when he taps his foot in nervous patterns, he is communicating discomfort and disengagement, regardless of his verbal responses. His body is telling a different story than his mouth, and people always believe the body. Elegance requires mental discipline. The man who cannot control his own body language cannot control anything else. If your hands betray your anxiety, if your feet reveal your impatience, if your eyes dart around seeking approval or escape, you have already failed the first test of refinement. But here is what separates the truly sophisticated from the merely well-dressed: awareness. Men who understand body language maintain direct eye contact during conversations, keep their shoulders back in confident postures, and use open palm gestures that convey sincerity rather than defensive closed fists. They have mastered the art of physical stillness that comes from mental certainty. The third betrayal, verbal vulgarity. Here is where most modern men completely lose their way. They mistake vulgarity for strength, crudeness for confidence. They believe that dropping expletives makes them sound authentic, that harsh language demonstrates their unwillingness to conform to social expectations. What they fail to understand is that this approach broadcasts the exact opposite of what they intend. Language is power, and like any form of power, it reveals character in how it is wielded. The man who relies on profanity to express himself is like a carpenter who only knows how to use a hammer. Every problem looks like a nail because his toolkit is limited. Listen to how Hugh Jackman speaks in interviews. Notice the precision of his language, the thoughtfulness behind every word. He can express frustration, disagreement, even anger, without resorting to the verbal shortcuts that lazy minds depend upon. This is not about being sterile or overly formal. This is about having enough respect for language to use it properly. The elegant man understands that words are instruments of precision, not weapons of convenience. When he wants to express intensity, he chooses powerful language that amplifies his meaning rather than diminishing it. When he disagrees, he uses specific terms that address the issue rather than general profanity that attacks the person. Consider the psychological impact of vulgar language in formal settings. When a man peppers his speech with expletives during business dinners, charity galas, or cultural events, he is unconsciously signaling several damaging things about himself. First, that he lacks the vocabulary to express complex thoughts elegantly. Second, that he does not respect the setting enough to modify his behavior appropriately. Third, that he prioritizes his own comfort over others' experience. I remember sitting in a family restaurant when the man across from us launched into a full monologue, peppered with every four-letter word in the book, loudly, repeatedly, and apparently proudly. It was not confidence. It was theatrical aggression designed to compensate for an internal sense of inadequacy. Everyone within earshot became uncomfortable, not because they were prudish, but because they recognized the desperation in his performance. The elegant man never needs shock value to command attention. His words carry weight because they are chosen deliberately, not scattered carelessly. He speaks with calm conviction and lets the silence after his statements speak even louder than the words themselves. True authority does not need to swear to prove its point. It simply states its position with clarity and confidence, knowing that the strength of the argument matters more than the volume of its delivery. The fourth betrayal, inappropriate humor. The man who mistakes shock value for wit has missed the entire point of social intelligence. Ryan Reynolds built his career on humor, but watch carefully how he calibrates his jokes depending on the setting. What works on a late-night comedy show would never appear in his more formal interviews or business settings. Elegance requires emotional intelligence. It demands that you read the room before you speak, that you consider the comfort of others before your own entertainment. The refined man can make people laugh without making anyone uncomfortable. He understands that the best humor elevates everyone present rather than targeting someone for cheap laughs. I have watched men destroy their reputations with a single poorly timed joke. They thought they were being bold, edgy, authentic. Instead, they revealed their fundamental inability to navigate social situations with grace. The truly sophisticated man makes others feel more intelligent, more interesting, more valued in his presence. The fifth betrayal, chaos management. Some men turn simple tasks into theatrical productions. They volunteer to help with dinner arrangements and suddenly need 3 assistants, 2 backup plans, and a detailed itinerary for setting a table. They transform basic social coordination into a crisis management exercise. Paul Newman understood the power of making difficult things look easy. Whether racing cars, building businesses, or hosting social gatherings, he approached everything with the same calm competence. He made excellence appear effortless because true mastery always does. Elegance streamlines, it simplifies, it takes complexity and makes it appear natural. When you overcomplicate simple processes, when you need a small army to execute basic plans, when you turn every minor decision into a major production, you are not demonstrating sophistication. You are broadcasting your inability to function without drama. The elegant man operates from a position of quiet confidence. He delegates effectively, plans thoroughly, and executes smoothly. He does not narrate every step of his process because he does not need external validation for his competence. The sixth betrayal, linguistic laziness. Frank Sinatra never said something was literally insane when describing his weekend in Las Vegas. He understood that language has power and that power deserves respect. When you pepper formal conversations with trendy slang, you are not being relatable. You are being unprofessional. There is a time and place for casual language, but the sophisticated man calibrates his communication to match his environment. At business dinners, museum galas, or formal events, your vocabulary should reflect the gravity and importance of the setting. This does not mean speaking like a character from a period drama. It means having enough respect for language to use it appropriately. It means understanding that fire is not a suitable adjective for describing a quarterly earnings report, and that slaying has no place in professional correspondence. Words are the currency of intelligence. When you devalue that currency through linguistic shortcuts, you devalue yourself in the process. The seventh betrayal, assumption addiction. The man who operates like a mind reader with an attitude problem has missed a fundamental principle of social grace. Elegance assumes positive intent until proven otherwise. It gives people the benefit of the doubt rather than searching for hidden meanings in neutral statements. George Clooney built his reputation not just on his acting ability, but on his diplomatic skills. Watch his interviews and notice how he responds to potentially inflammatory questions. He does not assign malicious intent where none was stated. He does not twist neutral words into personal attacks. When someone offers you oat milk instead of regular milk, the elegant response is not, "Did you assume I want that?" It is, "Thank you, regular milk would be perfect." When someone gives you directions you already know, you do not respond with, "I obviously know where that is." You say, "I appreciate the help." The refined man understands that most social interactions are neutral, not hostile. He does not exhaust others by treating every conversation like a chess match, where hidden strategies must be decoded. The eighth betrayal. Class commentary. The moment you start a sentence with, "That is so low class," you have identified yourself as the least refined person in the room. True elegance never needs to contrast itself with anything to shine. It does not require pointing out other people's shortcomings to establish its own value. Mick Jagger revolutionized not just music, but male fashion. Yet he never achieved this by mocking others' style choices. He focused on his own expression, his own creativity, his own evolution. He understood that confidence comes from internal certainty, not external comparison. When you mock someone else's outfit, manners, or choices, you reveal your own insecurity. You demonstrate that your sense of self-worth depends on feeling superior to others, rather than being secure in your own value. The truly sophisticated man elevates others through his presence. He makes people feel more confident, more valued, more interesting. He does not need to diminish anyone else to make himself appear larger. The ninth betrayal. Environmental blindness. Elegance begins with awareness of space, of timing, of people, of energy. The man who asks questions that were already answered, who misses obvious social cues, who barrels through conversations without reading the room, has failed the most basic test of social intelligence. David Beckham's enduring appeal comes not just from his fashion choices, but from his social awareness. Watch him in group settings and notice how he reads the energy, how he adjusts his communication style to match the mood, how he picks up on non-verbal cues that others miss entirely. When your friend goes quiet during dinner, you notice. When someone is clearly trying to end a conversation, you recognize the signals. When the energy in a room shifts, you feel it and respond accordingly. This is not about being psychic. This is about being present. The elegant man participates in the world around him rather than demanding that the world revolve around him. He contributes to conversations instead of waiting for his turn to speak. He enhances social situations rather than disrupting them with his own agenda. The 10th betrayal, perfection pressure. Here is what most men misunderstand about elegance. It is not about never making mistakes. It is about how you handle the inevitable moments when things go wrong. True refinement reveals itself not in flawless execution, but in graceful recovery. I have made every mistake on this list. I have overshared at formal dinners. I have made jokes that landed poorly. I have certainly been guilty of documenting experiences instead of living them. But that is exactly why I can speak to this with authority. Elegance is not a destination, it is a practice. The most sophisticated men I know are constantly refining themselves. They observe their own behavior with the same attention they pay to their wardrobes. They understand that true elegance comes from the inside out, not the outside in. Your Ermenegildo Zegna suit is beautiful, but it cannot make you elegant. Your Rolex is impressive, but it cannot buy you refinement. Your expensive lifestyle is enviable, but it cannot purchase sophistication. Elegance is earned through consistent choices, through the decision to listen more than you speak, through the discipline to control your energy and your language, through the wisdom to make others feel valued in your presence. The most elegant thing you can do is often nothing at all. Sometimes the greatest power move is silence. Sometimes the most sophisticated response is restraint. Sometimes the classiest choice is simply being present, being aware, being genuinely interested in the world beyond yourself. If you want to transform your presence from performed to authentic, if you want to learn how elegance becomes power, and if you want to join a community of men committed to true refinement, subscribe to this channel and activate notifications. Leave a like if this resonated with your desire to elevate your sophistication beyond surface-level aesthetics. Comment below with these words. If you found value in today's discussion, elegance is earned, not bought. Because true power, gentlemen, has never been about what you own. It has always been about who you are. Remember, fashion is temporary, style is personal, but elegance is eternal.